I recently finished a very good book and mused this will make my top 5 list. This thought was immediately followed by the question, I wonder what my top 5 list would look like. So I had to think, and I came up with this list. Number 1 was easy. Scouting on Two Continents, the biography of Frederick Russell Burnham. I found this old book in a cardboard box at a gun show in Puyallup, Washington. Burnham's life reminded me of a real-life Forrest Gump. The man put himself into so many life-threatening situations at notable times in history and managed to live through them somehow. He spent his latter years on the La Cuesta Ranch, a neighbor of my grandparents at Little Oak Flat. Burnham and his wife, Blanche Blick, are buried in the Three Rivers Cemetery. A very close second on my list is Unbroken, the story of Louis Zamperini, a young Olympic distance runner who joins the Army Air Corps in World War II. Louis and his aircrew are forced to ditch their bomber in the Pacific Ocean during an air search for another lost plane. Louis survived 47 days at sea until captured by Japanese forces and sent to a POW camp. Here he was singled out and tortured for years until rescued by invading U.S. forces. A phenomenal story of survival. Third belongs to Journal of a Mountain Man, a collection of Jim Clyman's diaries spanning his trapping days in the 1820s, his homesteading days in the 1830s, and his pioneering and immigrant train days of the 1840s. Clyman was one of the few men during these periods to record details of the land he passed through, the people he met, and his experiences. You can easily visualize these events through his eyes. Fourth is Hope and Honor, the biography of Sid Sachnow. I hope I pronounced that right. Sid was born Jewish in Lithuania as Hitler rose to power in Germany. As a child, he watched his relatives being murdered and sent to the camps. Through the courageous efforts of his mother, hiding him with sympathetic neighbors, he survived the Holocaust and World War II. Sid came to America after the war, where he finished school and joined the Army. Sid retired as a 2-star Major General. Rounding out the top 5 is Tailholt Tales. Like Burnham's biography, this story has a local connection for me. It describes the early settlement of Tulare County by immigrants. This book is the biography of Thomas Jefferson Mayfield, known to everyone as Uncle Jeff. The Mayfield family traveled to California from Texas by ship, docking in San Francisco. They were one of the first families to cross Pacheco Pass by wagon, making their way across the swampy San Joaquin Valley and on to the Fremont mines. A short time later, they moved south to the Kings River and began raising livestock. Jeff's mother died soon after. Since his father's ranching operations kept him away for long periods, young Jeff was left behind to be raised by the local Yakut Indians. His exploits and adventures stitched together the history of Tulare County better than anything I have ever read. Number 6 and 7 are a wash, so let's give 6 to the lady. Land of the Burnt Thigh is the story of the Ammon sisters, Edith and Ida Mary. Their mother dies young, leaving them to be raised by an aunt. Meanwhile, their father remarries and starts another family. Economically, times are hard. The sisters decide they should no longer burden their family, so they join the land rush and file a homestead claim in western South Dakota. Having no idea what they got themselves into, they are dropped off at the homestead by a hired teamster. miles from town with no human presence in sight except each other. They immediately decide they have made a dreadful mistake and decide to return. The only neighbor who knows they exist offers to take them back to town, but he keeps finding important things he forgot to do and postpones their departure until they become settled in. Both sisters eventually prove up their homestead, file on another, open a store, newspaper, trading post, and become leaders of their community. Grit. These girls had plenty. A very close seventh is White Jacket, Melville's diary about life aboard a United States warship during the 1840s. His picturesque descriptions of the daily brutality and hardships suffered by common seamen while sailing on a 17th century man-of-war is breathtaking. Life in the 17th century was hard, but life at sea could be much worse. A great read. Number 8 is 12 Years a Slave, the astonishing story of a free northern black man kidnapped and sold into slavery in the South. His experience educates the ignorant on the horrors of slavery in the southern states before the Civil War. Just as Melville was trying to survive his naval service, Solomon was also trying to survive slavery. He is eventually freed and reunited with his family. Number 9 is the Diary of Colonel Calvin Jackson. Like Unbroken, this is another World War II diary by a captured U.S. soldier who spent most of the war in a Japanese POW camp. That he and his diary survived that brutality is a miracle in itself. Last but not least, and keeping with the World War II theme, is With the Old Breed. I've read a lot of history about war, but this book describes what war is better than any. For me, it's like watching Hollywood war movies until Saving Private Ryan came along and captured the reality of war as best it could. Every person who would glorify war or rush our troops into battle should be required to read this book. It occurs to me these stories are all historical nonfiction, first-hand accounts. This seems unusual because I read a lot of fiction, recreational reading, for escape. But these books are real-life stories told by real people, uncommonly remarkable people, and to me, they are all inspirational. As modern civilized people, we like to think we are much smarter and more capable than these archaic, backwards old-timers. Pure arrogance, the mantra of modern man. When the lights go out and civilization disintegrates, I would give anything to have these people for neighbors.